Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production YouTube, and welcome to the Friday review. Now, today's album review is brought to you by Ryder, who at least brought this band and album to my attention. This band, of course, is Saber, and this is their debut full-length album that is Without Warning, which was independently released on January 1st, still digitally, and they will independently release it physically on CD on February 1st. So that's definitely great, definitely for those who definitely are interested in wanting to obtain this physically. Well, hopefully at least we'll be able to at least get you guys interested in these guys. So Saber. This is definitely a newer metal band, a traditional heavy metal band based out of Los Angeles, California. Actually, and one of the members for this band that I definitely recognize is singer Steven Villa, who actually had sang in bands like either Lethal Night, but one of them was Omori Rising, which was a local band from Fresno, California. So that's great. And of course, besides that, on this album, we do have Trevor William Church providing drums for this album. Again, if you don't know who Trevor William Church is, maybe some of you might have been living under a rock. He's, of course, again, from Fresno, California, and again, the son of Bill Church of Montrose and Sammy Hagar fame, but he does run Haunt. Again, also one of the busiest musicians throughout 2020. So he does provide a lot of the drum stuff for this album because they don't really have a legitimate drummer, I guess, at this point. So it's very cool that he was able to go out of his way to at least help these guys out in the drumming department. And again, does add a little bit of authenticity to this album. So without further ado, let's get into my review of Without Warning by Saber. Alright, so before I really get into my review, or at least my thoughts on this album, let's do a track listing rundown. We got about 8 songs here, and it all clocks in at 29 minutes and 16 seconds. Yes, it's not that long, guys, but I think it's perfect for perfect of length for at least something at least to give people the idea of what these guys are about. I know I forgot to mention that Saber, it's not never mentioned when these guys were formed. However, they at least had to been formed sometime in 2018 or 2019, at least somewhere around there, because again, they released their debut single Speed Racer last year. So, and of course, no, in 2019 and last year was Strike of the Witch, so they've at least done stuff. But this album, again, besides I think a few or 2 songs on this album that at least were present on some of their the last 2 stuff, their debut stuff, it's definitely I think that this is a good way to at least give people ideas. So I know I didn't really go into any of the songs yet, but still, I at least have to at least give out some sort of examples on and try and defend why they probably would choose 29 minutes at least to be the length of their new album instead of tacking in 2 or 2 more songs to at least to edge it out. But I get why they probably kept what they kept, which again, I tip my hat to. So alright, so these 8 songs are Storm of Steel, Without Warning, Midnight Rider, Strike of the Witch, Outlaw, Leather-Laced Lady, We'll Meet Again, and Speed Racer. So there's your 8 songs there. So, where do my thoughts lie with this album? Well, let's just put out this way. Again, I've defended how at least decent I've defended the length of the album. Again, you don't, sometimes I think, or especially if you're a starting metal band and are definitely want to try and put out a full-length album, would it be what would be a better way to kind of at least give people the impression, what kind of length do you want your album to be? Do you want to at least be 40 minutes? Do you want to be 50 minutes? Or would it be better to at least somewhere between it, at least a little under 35 minutes or under 30. I think in this case 29 may be short, but again, the debut Agent Steel album Skeptic's Apocalypse wasn't that very long either. I think if anything, this is at least a good way, especially since most of these songs are very speed metal Latin, for very fast. To some extent, though very melodic too. I think for this style it works, and I think it gets the idea across to at least the listener. It gives them a good idea of what you're about. So I think making your full-length album a little bit short is at least a pretty decent way to at least to give the listeners a good impression of you. I think in this case, I think they do a solid enough job on giving the listener an impression, because there is at least a bit of an impression. They do have something to them. I think they are solid enough. They're decent enough. I think after this album, though, I think they will definitely start to push things a little further. But I think this album gives you a pretty decent taste of what they are all about. I mean, begins with Storm of Steel. I mean, besides after getting the sounds of just thunder, again, we got thunder sound effects for the beginning of the song. We then eventually get to the actual song, and it's a fine speed metal opener. So again, fast and rocking, a great way to open up your album with. Finally, we then get to, of course, the title track, which again comes next, and it's a fine title track. Nothing really to say there, other than it's very fine. Probably one of the longer songs in the album. Again, it clocks in at 4 minutes and 16 seconds, but I think it's a fine song. Got some catchy little hooks, riffs there, but I wouldn't say it's my favorite song on the album, but it's fine. Next up is Midnight Rider. Again, I really dig the riff for this song. It has a catchy vibe to it that I like. So another good song here. Then after that, we get Strike of the Witch, which is again a fine song. This again was one of the songs from their previous EP from last year. And again, it's a very fine song. Nothing really bad to say there other than I like it. Then comes Nexus Outlaw, which is probably up there as one of my other favorite songs on this album. It's another good rocker on here. It definitely just gives the pacing going, just goes, and it's a good song. Then finally we then get to Leather Laced Lady, which again, it's another catchy rocker. Catchy riffs. That's all I gotta say about this one. I really like it. Though it almost reminds me a little bit of early era Motley Crue. Think more like, for example, Too Fast for Love. That's the way I kind of feel towards this song, but that's just personally me. I think it's great. So it's a good song nonetheless. Then, of course, we then get to We'll Meet Again. Again, just another fine, quality, fun rocker with fun riffs. Just a good song. Finally, we end the album with Speed Racer, which was their very first single in 2019. Again, it ends the album on a high energy note, and it's a decent track, by the way. It's a good song. So there's some good songs on here. I definitely should have to mention that, what was the singer's name again? We go back here. Yeah, Stephen Villa. For a second, I was losing a little train of thought on the singer. Again, he does have a very high register voice to him. I guess and sometimes I don't like to try and compare them to certain other singers at times. Sometimes I will if it's really ones that I really have a good opinion of. But in this case, for some reason, there are times where I get a little, I'm reminding a little bit of Vince Neil. But maybe a much more better Vince Neil, I guess you can say. But I don't take that as a knock or as a bit of a discredit. Don't take that as anything harsh. Because again, I like the early Motley Crue albums. So in some ways, he does remind me a little bit, especially in his higher register when he's hitting a lot of the voids. Though he probably thinks he's trying to hit Halford level. But I think in this case, I don't think he has that at least that good of a range compared to Rob Halford, but that is really trying to really highly look at somebody. I think you're definitely are holding somebody a little bit in a higher register, and obviously when you do that, the expectations really can get lowered. So I think in this case, I think trying to look in that kind of ideal aspect, I think definitely will hinder your listening experience. So do not, again, if you're thinking that this guy is going to sound like the next coming of Rob Halford, do not expect that. But I think for what he is able to at least pull off from this album, I think he's fine. I think he does a good job with some of these songs. I think with each album, I think I will expect him to at least get even better with each album. There's always room for improvement when it comes to some of this. But I think this is a solid debut, and I think the songs that they chose for here, again, are very good. Again, I wouldn't say they're amazing, but for a debut album, what can you expect? So I think they did a pretty good job with some of this. So there you go. There is my review for Without Warning from Saber. This is, of course, their debut full-length album. And when it comes to debut full-length albums, I'll have to say I am one of those that will definitely rate them. Because, again, I know that might be a little bit of unfair, especially for bands that are definitely starting out. I don't know how good of an idea it would be to really give a band on their beginning a rating. But I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to give them a very generous rating. That's an 8 out of 10. Some have given them 7 out of 10. Some have done either 6. Some of them will just flat out probably give these guys a fucking 5 out of 10. And I think in some ways I feel that's a little bit harsh. I think when it comes to this, I'm going to be very generous and give at least an 8 out of 10. Just because I think this is a fine debut album. I'm one of those, I don't like to always be harsh on a lot of newer bands. And when it comes to at least the traditional heavy metal genre, especially with these days, a lot of them just tend to really look at this stuff as just nostalgic based. And I think that in many ways also can be a little bit harsh. So I think in many ways I like to play things very fairly, and I think again for this score, I think it's a fair enough score to give these guys. So I think again 8 out of 10 I think is a fine enough score for these guys. I think they did a good job with this album. I do expect subsequent albums to at least improve more and more, but that is always something to expect with bands that are starting out. You should at least expect some sort of improvement with each album. That's just how the evolution of bands go anyways. Again, you expect an evolution within each album, and I think with Saber they show a lot of promise, and I expect them to get to improve even more and more. But again, I'm being fair with I'm trying my best to be fair with this album, and I hope most of you take it that way. I'm being fair, so I think that this is a very solid album, a solid debut album from Saber. So if this sounds like an album that you definitely would be into, again, I will leave you a link to their Bandcamp page in the description box where you can listen to these guys and maybe support when they release their debut album on CD on February 1st. So with that, again, I definitely congratulate at least Saber for at least putting out a debut album, and I'm glad that Stormrider brought this album to my attention, because definitely I think this is a pretty good way to start off the year, even though things have been starting off kind of like herky-jerky. But I think this is a good album to get people's minds off a lot of the BS going on within the world. So definitely, this is a good album. Definitely, I'm looking forward to any subsequent albums from these guys. So with that, I hope you all enjoyed this every thrash. I say I'm out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.